believe there are 3 volumes out at the time of recording this video, with 4 on its way. One thing that I noticed within the first 2 chapters.
In 2009, a complete nobody in Japan uploaded 15 manga pages to a free blog. It had wobbly lines, characters that barely held their shape, and backgrounds that sometimes weren't even there. Yet millions of people couldn't stop reading it. Then, one of the most technically gifted artists in manga read every page in just a single night and decided he wanted to redraw the whole thing from scratch. By the end of this video, you'll understand how the worst artist in manga built a 36 million copy franchise, and why the best artist in the whole of Japan wanted to be the one to remake it. The creator, known only as One, grew up in Kanasu, a small city in Saitama Prefecture, and his obsession with manga started early. When he was a kid, his parents bought him a few volumes of Crayon Shin-chan, and that was it for him. By grade school, he decided he wanted to become a manga artist, and he would fill roughly 50 notebooks with drawings through middle and high school, but never showed anyone. The one time his parents found one of his gag manga, a series called Middle-Aged Man, they reacted angrily, which only caused him to be more secretive about the whole thing. Now, most aspiring mangaka you'd hear about were grinding toward a debut. But One wasn't grinding towards anything at all. He was simply drawing in secret for nobody, because the idea of someone actually reading his work terrified him. And the manga industry wasn't going to find him either, because it has a clear pipeline. Win an award, get an editor, get serialized, and One had none of that. So in 2009, he did what any creator without connections would do. He bought a PC, a drawing tablet, and a copy of Comic Studio to teach himself digital drawing. That's it. He drew 15 pages, uploaded them to a free manga site and his personal blog, and figured that would be the end of it. The first chapter of One Punch Man was literally homework, and the art looked like it. Rough line work, flat compositions, characters that could have been sketched in a middle school notebook. By any professional standard, these pages were unpublishable. But the story, though, was something else entirely. One Punch Man is a comedy disguised as a battle manga. It follows Saitama, a hero who trained so hard he went bald, and now he can defeat any enemy with a single punch. He's the strongest being alive, and he's gotten bored out of his mind, because every villain, every world-ending threat ends in just one hit. But the point was never the fight. The point was that none of it mattered. Saitama's frustrated that nothing challenges him anymore, and the humor lives in that gap between the world treating every battle like it's the end of days, while Saitama just treats it like a trip to the grocery store. And here's what shouldn't have worked, yet it did. Even in that rough art, the fight choreography still landed. One couldn't draw polished panels, but he understood pacing, visual impact, and comedic timing at a level most professionals never reach. And the readers noticed fast. By chapter 5, roughly only a week after the first upload, the comments started flooding in. By chapter 30, in October 2009, he was pulling 1,000 comments per update, fueled by other webcomic creators sharing his work across their own sites. So his storytelling was undeniable. But the manga industry didn't measure creators by their stories. It measured them by their line work. And One's line work was, by every metric that mattered to publishers, terrible. The readers came, but the industry didn't.
Fan expectations, company expectations, and their own expectations as writers, thinking up a plot.
The whole time One was trying to break into the industry, the webcomic kept growing. He'd taken a hiatus in February 2010 to work a full-time job, then quit in spring 2011 to try going professional. But the people around him told him not to bother. And while they were saying that, his readership was climbing. By June 2012, One Punch Man had crossed 7.9 million views, averaging around 20,000 visitors a day. NHK even profiled it in a segment about web manga. But none of it translated into a career because webcomics in Japan at the time weren't a real path to anything. They were hobby projects, treated the way record labels once treated bedroom producers. Interesting as a curiosity, but not serious enough to build on. So his work has been read nearly 8 million times with 20,000 visitors every single day. Yet the manga industry's position was, that's nice, but can you actually draw? And there's a reason the system works that way. Manga editors can evaluate line work at a glance. one page, and they know. But storytelling? That actually takes chapters to prove. And no editor is going to read 30 chapters of rough sketches just to find out if the writing is brilliant. One even tried meeting the system on its own terms. He attempted a cleaned-up version of One Punch Man, redrawing the pages with the kind of polished line work editors actually wanted to see. But it lasted only about 2 chapters before he stopped and concluded, in his own words, that it would never sell. He could write a story, he just couldn't draw it. The system was only designed to recognize one kind of talent, and one had the other kind, but someone inside the industry was about to discover him anyway. Yusuke Murata was born in 1978 in Miyagi Prefecture, and his talent showed up absurdly early. Before he could even finish middle school, he entered Capcom's design contests for the Mega Man video game series and won twice. His designs became Dust Man in Mega Man 4 and Crystal Man in Mega Man 5. Real bosses in real games designed by a kid who hadn't even started high school yet. From there, he only got better. After apprenticing under Takeshi Obata, the artist behind Death Note and Hikaru no Go, he drew Eyeshield 21, 333 chapters in weekly Shonen Jump. By the time the series ended, Murata was regarded as one of the most technically gifted artists manga had ever produced. Soon after, Murata came across a blog post from an illustrator called Akiman, praising a rough webcomic named One Punch Man. He clicked through and started reading, didn't stop, and finished the entire thing in just one sitting through the night. He later said the webcomic had enough power to rival the best of the pros. Then in January 2011, Murata tweeted at One for the first time, praising the series and Saitama as a character. But his decisive moment came months later when Murata saw one post that he was thinking about quitting his day job to pursue manga, and that the people around him were discouraging it. Murata at this point was in a hospital bed. He'd broken out in hives, his internal organs were infected, and his windpipe had swollen until he could barely breathe. Lying there, he started thinking about how quickly it can all end. So he made a decision. If he was going to die, the one thing he wanted to do with whatever time he had left was to redraw a stick figure webcomic by a creator no publisher would sign. So he contacted One directly with an offer. Let me redraw your manga. He was still under an exclusive contract with Shonen Jump at the time, which meant he had to work around his own publisher to make it happen. One of the greatest artists in Japanese manga history read something drawn in near stick figures, went against his own contract, and decided, this is what I want to spend my last days on. On the other end of that offer was a creator who'd spent years hiding his work from everyone, and now one of the biggest names in manga was telling him those pages were worth redrawing. So they worked out a clean split. One would provide the story, characters, dialogue, and storyboards, while Murata handled the art. But Murata's first instinct was to draw Saitama looking handsome, cool, stars in his eyes, the kind of protagonist shonen readers expect. Yet he scrapped all of it after realizing that Saitama's appeal, in his words, isn't in his looks. And the breakthrough came when he drew a bored, gum-chewing Saitama staring blankly at nothing. And as Murata described it, a light bulb went off. So he redrew the entire opening from scratch. And when One saw the finished chapter, he said, the result blew me away. On June 14, 2012, the redrawn One Punch Man launched on Tonari no Young Jump, a platform run by Shueisha, the same publisher behind the Shonen Jump contract Murata had walked away from. For the first time, the story that millions had read in rough sketches now existed in a form the industry had to take seriously, and it took off immediately. The manga climbed to 2.2 million copies in circulation by late 2013, and when Madhouse adapted it into an anime in 2015, it earned a perfect score on Rotten Tomatoes. While both English volumes debuted at number 1 and number 2 on the New York Times Manga Bestsellers list. From there, the numbers only grew, past 11 million copies by 2016, and by February 2026, Shueisha announced the series had surpassed 36 million, and One story, now paired with world-class visuals, had become a global franchise. The collaboration made One famous, but Mob Psycho 100 proved he didn't need it. In 2012, just before Murata's One Punch Man launched, One had already begun serializing Mob Psycho 100 on a separate platform. He wrote it and drew it himself. No Murata, no polished line work, just his own unrefined style. Same crude art the industry said disqualified him. Then Studio Bones adapted it from 2016 to 2022, and finally critics didn't care about the line work. They called it one of the best anime of its generation. The manga even won the Shogakukan Manga Award, while the anime took Best Anime Series at the IGN Awards. And now the irony is, the industry said one couldn't draw well enough to matter. So he created a second franchise, drew every page himself in the same style they said made him unpublishable, only for the gatekeepers to hand him one of their most prestigious awards for it. Murata didn't save one. Millions of readers had already shown up without him. The art was never the point. The story was always the point. And the best artist in Japan understood that before the industry did. One is the most unlikely success story in modern manga. A creator who couldn't draw, who hid his notebooks for years, who was told his work would never sell, and yet built a 36 million copy franchise because his story was too good to ignore. The industry kept measuring the art, and one just proved the art was never the point. But he wasn't the only creator the industry nearly overlooked, and that's a story for next time.